Okay.
Good morning, everybody. We're here in Swift County virtually this morning for our final Strut Your Stuff tour with our Swift County team. It's great to see you guys. Thanks for joining us today. I'm so sorry we're not there in person. Really, it's kind of heartbreaking. We really enjoy. I remember so well when we were down there, Jen, and had ice cream. And we went next door to the woman who's runs the newspaper in town, right? And her, right? And anyway, that was a really fun trip. I remember it was a downpour, raining, and we had to run from the cafe there next door into the library, and we got soaked in about 20 yards. Anyway, that's a fun memory for me from last time we got to be together. So as Mary said, sorry I was a few minutes late. We're having a lot of security attacks at the foundation during this time of COVID. I don't know if other people are experiencing that as well, but really sophisticated phishing and other kinds of attacks that look super legit but aren't, right down to the signature line. And so anyway, I was with our Marco as our security provider this morning to kind of get that figured out on my computer. So sorry I was a little late, but we're going to spend some time, as Mary said, just kind of listening and catching up on it. Hopefully this will be fun for you guys too. I don't know if I assume you're all dispersed and don't get to see each other much either. And so we want to kind of cast our minds back over the work, over the time of us working together on the program, and just hear from you how things are going and what's been accomplished, and do a little reflection. And this is great for our Blandin team to hear from you about things that we could be doing to support you better, and some thinking about what's coming next. So with that, I think we've scheduled 2 hours for this, so we'll see how much time we just wanted to have plenty of time to visit and be together and reflect. So we'll see how much time we need. But Jen, at this point, I thought I'd just turn it over to you. And I'm looking at you where you are on my screen, and we'll take it from here, and you can kind of manage the meeting how you like, because our hope was to hear, through about the different project you've done and where you're at as a team. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jen.
Okay, and I was mentioning too that the team hasn't really seen the presentation. I included the new things and then also included the old. So I thought everybody could just jump in if you want to comment. If somebody needs to leave early, and let me know, we can jump around in the presentation too. Can I go ahead and share my screen then? Okay. I think this is it. Okay, can you guys see this? Okay.
Yep.
Just a reminder from Kim, excuse me, I cannot join via Zoom, so I'm only on via the call.
Okay. Okay.
I wish somebody would work on broadband up there and get that fixed up for you, Kim. That's too bad.
That would be nice, except that's not the case. CNH actually restricts access to that due to privacy, or I don't know, a security issue. And so we're actually not able to use Zoom here at all. We have to do MSN groups.
Gotcha. Well, basically the agenda, we went over our what's your favorite takeout dish during the COVID crisis. And by the way, the link I put up in chat said that it covered the takeout dish, the most popular in each state, and Minnesota was donuts. It's kind of disappointing, I thought, but anyway. So I won't read the agenda, we'll just get right into it. For the community presentation, we're going to go over who is involved, what activities and projects are being implemented. I kind of applied a COVID lens because I think from an economic development perspective, it's really completely taken over my day-to-day activities, and it's made me think about almost everything through kind of what is this doing and what's it going to lead to. And when we started this project, we wanted to look at one of the goals was kind of look at our activities through a broadband lens. Like, how can we incorporate broadband thinking into what we're doing? And this, I was like, well, gosh, now with COVID, it makes me do that as well. And so then what the team's plans are for the future. And then we get to the teams, and I did creep on some people on their Facebook. So if you see yourself there and are like, what the heck? This is why, because I'm a creeper. So this is our team. You know, we started with a group of about 28 people, and then we've probably had about 6 to 10 that have stuck with the program. And yes, we are the cool kids. So that's kind of everybody. And then for our planning outcomes, the last time around I used the Intelligent Communities graphic, and this time I went to more of a word cloud. And what I did was I took our planning goals that we had and plopped those into a word cloud generator, and this is what came up. And I thought that was kind of a cool way to look at it, because we had lots of ideas that we never really got to. But to me, I thought some of them were kind of fun, the way they put them together. And then also it to me, when I read this, I thought it really shows that it's infrastructure. That I thought there were a lot of similarities with some words and what we think is infrastructure. So I just thought that was a fun way to look at the things that we were trying to accomplish. And I'll start with one of the things that's one of our last projects to get done. But one of our projects ended up being online camping reservations. This came out at our original visioning. We wanted to be able to do online camping where folks could come in and pick their specific spot and get an idea, if they weren't familiar with the park, of where the campsite was. Look at availability by dates, look and see where you were going to be adjacent to someone if you wanted to make reservations for more than one person. And so we got this project going. The unfortunate thing is, because of COVID-19, it's not really now rolled out. Camping is limited, working through that. This was also going to be the site for our fairgrounds camping, which we've got a huge campground and it sells out every year. And now that's also probably not going to happen, but it's a nice site. We utilized our parks staff as well as our GIS staff in getting this developed. It is a subscription to a site underneath the tool, but I think it's going to be eventually pretty popular. And we have the option to incorporate some city campgrounds too, if they're interested. One of the things that came up, we found out, I think the lessons learned were that some cities actually thought, it's like, oh, we have online camping. They put it on their website, online camping, and then you click and you enter what you want and you send an email. And that wasn't the same definition of what we had thought online camping should or would be. And then again, this project ranked high, but it really, I think this was a lesson throughout, is that even though people wanted it and championed it, we needed the right people in place to push it forward. We really needed county leadership to say, yep, we're going to do it. We're going to commit to it for the long haul. And we're going to get the work done to make it happen. Because I don't think a community member could have just done this. It obviously needs to be hosted by the county. So it took a little while to kind of say, someone needs to take this on, and it needs to be, you. So, oh shoot, I'm running low on battery. So I'm going to walk around a minute. And the next one, we've rebooted our PCs for People option. If you recall, the last time we really struggled with PCs, or I felt like we did, working with the schools. And We switched gears and worked with our HRA, and then it was completely different. And we were able to distribute the rest of our computers after our big site thing, where I think we were able to give up close to 30 out. We still had about 20 left. And then those were able to go out just by word of mouth. And Sherry really has taken that on as the champion of that project. And one of our looking forward ideas back then was we were applying for this grant to do housing rehab targeting elderly and the disabled. And so we looked at partnering again with PCs for People to do, excuse me, an empowerment service that would work one-on-one with the recipients of the grant to see what they needed, to give them basic information and to find low-cost internet if they didn't already have it. And so we did win that grant. It was, it's $479,000, and now we've got 20 PCs. We're doing laptops because just with experience with some of the elderly, even some of the veterans at Swift County had said this would be more conducive to their needs versus because of the mobility than a desktop. And so we're looking forward to getting this going. And I think it's even more empowering now than maybe it was as we pitched it, just because of COVID-19 and the expansion of telehealth options, the ability to access things like library services and ebooks, and that maybe, again, were nice to have, but now are really, kind of that, to me, it's a necessity. But so we're excited about being able to get this done. And PCs for People was short on computers. We had to push things back a little bit, and now we're able to get them.
Question, Jen?
Yep.
I'm looking at your project list, and it sounds like you were distributing in PCs for People 2.0 some remaining computers that the foundation provided, plus this $1,000 PCs for People elderly/disabled, kind of together in this last round, or?
Oh, you know what? No, this is kind of did I not send it to you?
I don't think so. I could be wrong. I think the last version I have is, there's just kind of an estimate for $1,000, and unless I misplaced your project for that.
Yeah, it did end up being 2,000. It's like 2,500 because we're going to do some stuff. And well, I can follow up with you on that if we need to do something different. Sorry. Well, I know we have another one that for sure we haven't sent in yet. And it's the next one. And I'll let those folks talk. I don't know, Sherry, did you want to discuss how that's going with the PCs? I can't see you, so I don't know if you're shaking your head.
I can't hear S. Volan, but I see you talking. I still can't hear you.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Sherry, maybe you could use the chat box too, we'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
Or I don't know if maybe the mute got pressed on your actual computer. If you need to, you could also call in. There should be a phone number on the meeting request.
Right. Okay. You can't hear me?
Oh, I think we can just hear you.
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Okay. The only thing, I was going to say is that we gave all those computers away that we got the first time. And, I thought it was a huge success. And if we get these other ones now, they'll be given away to the elderly, and hoping that's, a huge success also.
Yeah, and I would just say it's kind of a different, it's more about making sure that they know how to use them and can access where they can access the internet. And originally we had thought we would have them sooner in the year, just for different types, so that we thought these would be great to access the census, you know, information. We were going to do outreach there. But I think we can still do that. I don't know. I'm kind of excited to see how it works out. I don't know. And then Becca, did you want to say anything on the online camping?
I can just kind of piggyback what you said, Jen. I'm speaking for the Swift County Fair campground. My dad actually is the director of the campsite, and it's been a big relief for him to just be able to release this link and people can go and select their own sites. It's a lot less you know, headache on his part, making sure people are where they want to be. Now they have the option to just self-select where they'd like to be. Of course, this year it has some learning curves, but it was far more efficient and just, you know, not, and then more convenient too, people being able to pay through credit card on the site as well. I think within the first 24 hours, I'd say maybe 80 to 90% of the sites were booked. Looking at it right now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 8 campsites left. And again, with this COVID situation, will we have a fair, will we not? But also providing an easy way to refund checks or payment if needed as well too. So the the Fair Board is very happy with this new system. Looking forward to using it in the future and, you know, for other events aside from the county fair as well. They do book a lot of weddings on the grounds too. So, and sometimes highway department or road construction crews as well. So it'll be really nice for them to continue to use in the future.
Hey, Becca, would you repeat what you said about the numbers, about what % were booked within what period of time? What was that?
I believe in the first 24 hours, I would say 80% to 90% of the sites were booked.
Wow, that shows that's pent up demand right there, huh?
Very
Thanks for
much
that.
so.
Yep.
Yes.
Rebecca, how many sites are out there?
There are 128.
It makes you wish, it's like, oh, I wish the fair could for sure go now. Oh, well. But and this was just some of that original PCs for people. And this was something that I will mention. It was interesting to hear about the need for the computers when the schools closed, and that families did have access, so they didn't need a computer through the school when we originally did it. But then in cases now where you just maybe have one device and you have multiple kids in school and then someone may be working from home, it was one computer at home really wasn't sufficient to deal with COVID-19. And so that was a different way of looking at, you know, what is required really when everything changes. So to me, that was, you know, kind of good to know and think about all the devices we have and how it works. And then we had, from the original one, we had put in there that, that we were looking forward to the opportunity to work with PCs for people again, if we were able to successfully get this grant, and we were. And then the STEM camp reboot, I know Allison and Terri are both on, and they have plans to move forward, and I think there may be some modifications, but I'll go ahead and let them talk about this. We have not submitted this one, Mary. This is the one we haven't, for sure. And I've got the original slide from last time and this, you know, kind of the new one. So I'll let Terri or Allison take it away.
Allison, if you want to talk about the details of the upcoming potential camp, I guess we're hoping that it can still move forward. I see you're muted. There you go.
There, yep. Yeah, originally we had our camp scheduled for June 8th, and given the guidelines, the superintendent let us know that would not be possible. So we're on hold right now as far as when the camp can actually happen, but it is at the top of the list when the restrictions lift. We looked at a distance learning option for it, but it's just not the same to send all the materials home for the kids to work on it at home and for the parents to try to help them without the teacher who's prepared for them to work in groups and solve problems together. So there is a great camp out. They have it planned, and they're ready to send the materials whenever we want. We just would have to store them until then. So I don't know how that affects us at this moment for receiving the funding. Hopefully we still can. If you need us to buy the materials and store them for when it is safe to use, we can sure do that. Jen, maybe you have some thoughts on that.
I was kind of waiting to see from here how this would work, and then get back with Mary on the extension and what we need exactly. I know you both, Terry and Allison, have sent me some updates. I just haven't submitted it without knowing, you know, I kind of was waiting to hear back that we were going to get extensions. So
Yeah, you know, once you have a plan for any of your projects, you can submit an extension. You know, we'll entertain that for, you know, whatever you need. I mean, this is a great project, and you also have the option of reallocating these funds if there's something else comes up, but, you know, we'd like to see this happen. This is
This camp was an extreme success last year. We had 38 kids, and Allison, you can probably speak to the quickness of how people signed up for it, but the registration built up pretty quickly. And my kids were actually a part of this, and they absolutely loved it. Every day they came home and talked about how fun it was and all the things that they were learning, and they couldn't wait till the next one happened. And in fact, they talked about wishing that it was available more often than just 1 week. But with the plan kind of on hold now, you know, we're hoping that we can move forward, but Allison has planned the registration to be almost double capacity of last year, with twice as many teachers available to teach, 4 full-time teachers and up to 70 kids. So Allison, I don't know how many people were on the waiting list last year, but I don't think we're going to have any issues filling that registration up either.
No, we are, like you said, up to ready to host up to 70, almost double what we had before. And I think we had 7 people on the waiting list last year, which I think they just kind of stopped adding themselves when they saw there were so many ahead. We did have a couple dropouts, so people were able to join, but you're right. I had my kids there too, and they loved it. And I wouldn't have thought that from students going to school, basically full school days in the summer, 9 to 3:30. But I heard from other people that their kids who usually don't like to go to school couldn't wait to get out of bed and get to Camp Invention. And people wished it was more weeks. They wished the days were longer. And they talked about it all school year. The teachers at the elementary told me that kids were still talking about it, and they were trying to get their friends to go. And actually, last year we had 2 teachers. One of them decided he couldn't return, but within an hour, that teacher who was staying had rounded up 3 others who had heard so many good things about it. And we're excited to be on board. So it will be a great project when it can finally get back, and we hope to have it every year.
cool. Here are some more from last year.
Yeah, I think
Hey, again, is this Kate, what are the grades for this camp? I missed that. Maybe it says here, but what grade kids?
They gear it, they gear it for K through 6. We last year shortened it to, well, that was completed K through 6. So we said completed 1 through 6, just because the teachers wanted to concentrate on making it the best they could. This year, I think we could expand it to K, since we'd have more groups, more teachers. So it's an elementary program. And there are actually versions of this for preschool and also for middle school, where the preschool one obviously is preschool geared, but the middle school one becomes much more advanced and kind of leads even more into a robotics program or in-depth STEM activities. where they do research and work pretty closely in small groups to, they could go to contests and things after that.
I would
So the
imagine
goal
in
is-
a project like this, a big key is having a local instructor or teacher that's really bought in and and committed to this and sees the value in it, that local leader. Is that a big factor in the success, do you think?
I would say so. I mean, the teacher we had last year who's not able to join us is known for his kind of crazy science in his classroom, and he's got all kinds of animals and they're outside making rockets and things like that. And he was really good at promoting it. Our school has a pretty active robotics program, and I think that everyone from the school was really excited about it. Our superintendent was very supportive. And then we presented it to the school board, and the school board became very excited, and the newspaper wrote a couple articles about it. And it's rare. This camp, when we found it, was typically only offered in larger cities. I think the closest one to us was in St. Cloud, but then it was in Mankato, St. Cloud, Rochester, Duluth, the metro area. So there aren't a lot happening in small towns. So the fact that we brought it out here was kind of a big deal. I see it now from other resources that I think Foley is going to have one. It's picking up in a couple other smaller towns, but it is exceptional for it to be here for us and to have this money to make it so cheap, because in the larger cities, people are charging $200, $250 for this. And last year with this grant money, we were able to offer it for $10, which was remarkable.
Yes, it is. That is remarkable. That's really heartwarming, because you just hate to see income barriers like that prevent kids from having opportunities. So it's really gratifying to think of those. I hope those 70 kids get this chance this summer. We'll see.
They are offered to, or they're able to offer it to us or help us plan it as an after school activity too. If it doesn't work out in the summer, they can help us plan it for that setup too. So even if it leads into the fall or the winter, we could still make it happen.
Oh, good.
Good to know. I will continue then. One of the new ones we did, it was part of our old one. We had this app and we had a budget for possibly 2. 4-H did theirs, and we kind of modeled after what 4-H did to do an RDA app. And ours was really geared toward board members originally, just a resource for them to ease the way they access meeting information, and then include some of the basics. And you can see, kind of meeting packets, our news, events, how to get in touch with us, and then happenings. This was it's just happenings. And so this over here was an example of that. And one of our goals in Swift County originally was a community calendar. We had a community calendar team. Nothing ended up really coming out of it. There was a lot of push and pull about how it needed to be done and who was responsible for it. We even had one person come in and want, $20,000 to basically start a business to run community calendars. It was like, nope, that's not what it's for. So using our own website, our RDA website calendar feature, we were able to put this in, and it looks really cool on your phone. I talked with a couple businesses, bars, restaurants that typically will promote events that are going on. And they thought, oh yeah, this is great. I would use that, because I think the way a community calendar gets used is if people are using it and updating it. And then unfortunately, of course, COVID hit. And so now there's no events on my community calendar at all. But I think it's got potential. It's a really cool app. The way we accessed it was SwiftTick, and that was something that 4-H had discovered with networking with other 4-H's in other states. And I like it. It can send the push notifications to say, hey, the board meeting's going to start in 15 minutes and different things like that. So I don't know. I think it's been good. We only have about 20 people that are using the app for us. But I think it's got the potential to expand and do different things, or just move into, a community calendar focused app if we were ever to do that. And then the 4-H one, I don't know if you guys, Becca or Stephanie, want to talk about what's going on with the 4-H app?
Sure, I can talk. We're coming up on 1 year since we've had it created and available to our families. We have about 183 people that have it downloaded on their phone and are using it. You know, with the COVID-19 lens, it's been really helpful for us right now. I see Jen's got an old picture of the app there. We've made some updates and improvements since then, but it's been really helpful right now with a lot of—
You could show it on your screen too.
Should do that. I will hold it up here, see if that works. We made some updates and—
You'll have to stop sharing, Jen. Oh, that's
sorry.
how she's doing. Oh, she's just showing us on her.
Yep.
if you, or Jen, if you stop sharing, I can pull it up on my computer screen too if you want.
Sure, let me do that because my phone just keeps going off here. So I'm done, and let me see.
So our main page looks like this right now. I can't scroll down, but we've got—
But there when I stood up, since this is being recorded. Sorry.
one thing Minnesota 4-H has implemented now with our 4-H families at home is this 4-H at home webpage. Before they created it on their own website, we had these other links for livestock project opportunities as well as static projects. So any project that's non-livestock, just a one-click and then a page full of resources that families can try out. 4-H at Home is the new addition from Minnesota 4-H that takes you to the Minnesota 4-H Extension website, just with a bunch of videos to check out, and as well as upcoming events and stuff that are being offered. So we really like the app. It's, again, with the purpose of creating it being a one-stop shop for everything that you need. Down here is our 4-H online database where families log in to re-enroll each year. Right now on June 1st is the animal and livestock ID deadline. So again, pop into the app, click the button, and they're there to log in. Social media, we've got our website. Instagram is a new ad. Again, one place to contain all of this information. It's been really helpful. Another thing that we've added is, for all the Zoom links and things happening, we've got a one-button push further down on this screen. It won't let me scroll, but Minnesota 4-H Agronomy has been doing weekly webinar opportunities, so they can go to the agronomy button, hit webinars, and then they're right there too. Opens up the Zoom link, and no need to find in a email or meeting code or things like that. So just efficiency, convenience was our goal, and it seems to be well received. So.
Yeah, I don't know, Stephanie.
Blandin Broadband app, Mary, for all our stuff.
Yes.
And that is so, it's just been really encouraging to see the adoption of this 4-H app. When we were out there last time, we saw it then, Becca, and it's cool to see that it, so my question is about propagation of this across other counties, or have other people, this 4-H at Home app that you just showed us, have others in the 4-H world learned from your app? Or is anybody else trying that out?
Actually, yes. So we were Minnesota 4-H, the technology academic technologist calls us the pioneers. We had our app up and running prior to theirs, and they actually went with a different mobile app developer called Grandstand, and so they are replicating basically what we have done. The difference being that Grandstand developer is a container app, so Minnesota 4-H has their app within Grandstand, and then other counties are able to have their app within the Minnesota 4-H app. Comparing the two developers side by side, we like ours better. It has a few more features, push notifications being one of them. which we really like, you know, final reminders or upcoming things. It's been really helpful. So they've kind of modeled after us. We get asked a lot of questions, kind of how did we do this or what are the differences? So that's been kind of fun to be leading that charge. But yes, it is being replicated a little differently, but we were the first, so we get to say that.
And we should shout out to Stephanie because I know she really worked with the with SwiftTech and pretty much built at least ours. I know early on too at the 4-H. So, I mean, she is like, if you wanted to refer someone, she's the expert now on the app building with SwiftTech.
Yes.
Beck, I think you mentioned how many families, what percentage of the families, you know, roughly, I'm just curious, like of the total universe of 4-H families that could use it? Are most using? Not yet? How are you feeling about the adoption?
In our county specifically, Steph, we kind of said around 150 families we have. And so that we have 183 downloads, you know, that's telling us that other families, staff, and or other, there's that many more over our families have, you know, have downloaded it or checking it out. So
you have more than 100%? You have more people using the app than you have families?
yes.
Wow.
Well, we can't see for sure how many of our families have it downloaded. I think that number is pretty telling that it's being used. So
yeah.
Well, and there's 4-H families on this call right now too. I know Terri.
Yep.
And
I definitely use the app. And when Becca was talking about livestock ideas, I looked at the calendar. I'm like, oh yeah, I still need to do that. So I will definitely be using the app probably later today. I just,
nice.
you know, procrastination is not a great thing, but it seems like it always happens with 4-H.
Well, Stephanie, congratulations. I hope you feel a lot of affirmation from this. This has made a difference in people's lives. So good for you. It's fun to see Swift County leading on this too. That's great.
okay, so should we go back and I have to figure out what I'm doing. Okay. Then digital marketing for business. And this is, we really just did additional sites for this. And Molly provided reports with everyone, photos with everyone she worked with. I didn't include them in the presentation. But I heard nothing but good feedback and mentioned on an earlier call today that we did a COVID-19 survey for our businesses and then asked some questions about, you know, would they be interested in more of this related to e-commerce and making sure that they were able to reach their market during COVID, if that's something going forward. I think the folks that applied for this already obviously had an interest in using web and digital marketing, but we know we have some businesses who just, you know, that's not my thing, I don't need it. Well, now maybe you do need it. So I think it was a really good project, successful project, heard good things. And then it was the one that kind of had us looking forward, like how can we do more and maybe do some of community marketing, digital marketing together. And so we applied, or I did, thinking like this digital marketing for communities and EDOs would be a great network. And it really didn't work as I hoped. Part of it was there weren't enough like focused people that just do marketing to want to take the time to dedicate to a peer group. I think our area was too small. We just didn't have enough people. Also, there were 2 people that I think were on maternity leave that were dedicated, so that kind of blew it up right away. But there was maybe a handful that participated, and at the end we did some webinars and some things, and instead of having it be networking, it was more like, oh, can I just get the recorded version of that and watch it on my own time, which didn't work as the way I thought, but I think it could still work maybe on a much bigger region, like a big Southwest Minnesota region or something. But it was good information, and I think there's opportunities. I still think there's opportunities around it, but it didn't work the way I thought it would on that one. And then we get down to the CNH Weld training.
Hey,
I don't know.
Jen,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt. I wanted to ask a follow-up question about the business digital marketing consulting that you did.
Okay.
So you did 2 rounds of that. Do you feel like, are there still businesses in the county that would benefit, that would be interested, or have you pretty much reached everybody that was an eager learner participant now?
I think at that time, I know there were people that said they heard about it and said, if you do another one, we'd like to participate. I think now because of COVID, we're looking at, well, instead of maybe one-on-one, maybe we'd want Molly or someone to do kind of a wider, in response to, maybe it's for first timers that are new to e-commerce or new to social media, getting that presence, making it more general so a wider group could learn. I still think there's some that are looking for specific kind of one-on-one help.
Sure.
But listening, I was on the call earlier today with Blandin, and there were some folks working with SBDC, I think, in trying to do some one-on-one too. So I think there's opportunities, and we're going to look at our survey and see, where the need is, and revisit it.
Would you agree that the success of this program is really dependent on the quality of the instructor? And that part of why it was so successful here was just Molly? Would you, or not? Help me understand that better.
I think Molly did a great job, and I think different people had different expectations going in, and some of them thought that she far exceeded, and others were like, oh, it's not what I thought. But then once I figured out what it was, I still got useful information out of it. So yes, in a way, I think she was skilled to be able to, to adapt and provide, what's the word I'm looking for, information that was valuable to the businesses in all cases. So I think she is strong. I'm guessing it would work, with the group that's working with SBDC. I'm assuming there's going to be successes there. But I think she does really know her stuff, is what I heard in the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you.
And then Kim, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the CNH Weld training. I just really kept that the same. We haven't done another round, but I imagine this project today, with COVID, and what a great opportunity it could have been maybe to for any business to train. I mean, using this model for this, for something like welding, when there are restrictions about gathering in numbers of people. And, to me, I almost wish we were doing it now. I think it would have gotten a lot more attention from DEED, maybe the career force group, some of those things that were just like, oh, this is nice, it's a novelty. I think it really could have more sustainability given COVID-19. And Kim, I don't know what your thoughts are on the weld training. She might. And maybe she's not available. Are you there, Kim, or having difficulties?
Looks like she's trying to mute and unmute herself anyway. Maybe she can hear us. I'm glad she knows we're talking about her project. We'd love to hear from you, Kim.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's just my headset. Let me hang up my headset. Hold on a second. Yeah, because I could hear you guys, I just can't talk. Okay, so it would have been a little bit harder to do now because half of this class was done in classroom. Some of the training was done virtual. He had done that so they could complete it online, but they also had 20 hours of it was in classroom. And then the restrictions on the floor, well, obviously we're still working, it just would have been different, it would have been different. I think they could have gotten that part done, but it's definitely was a successful program here. I know for us alone, we had 3 individual internal applicants that switched over to welding from assembly, which has been positive for them. And we actually have hired 2 of the additional candidates that we had go through the welding class that worked here as well too. So I mean, definitely it gave different opportunities. I know we reached out to a few others when we had openings to see if they were interested, because that was always my goal, is to hire from them as first. And some of those individuals had also indicated that they had already taken other jobs within the weld field. So definitely a very successful program. And yes, I would strongly encourage any company that has something specific that they do within their location. We've had a numerous amount of people ask us in regards to like machining and fabrication, which is more difficult for us to do just because we don't have the number of machines here as we do the welders to be able to do the on-site training. We actually have discussed and looked into that, but definitely a very worthwhile program to be able to do that and give different options for people. I do agree that the problem would be because believe it or not, it's been a year already since we've gone through that here. If those individuals didn't go into welding within like the first 3 or 4 months of actually taking that training, unfortunately a lot of places aren't going to look at them as experienced enough to start welding with them. So I'm hoping that many of them could give them different opportunities.
I don't know if there's any questions on that one. Community websites, and this is, I've pulled Stephanie into this one. This was, we've got a lot of the technical work done on these, and it was really to give, we have many communities that don't have a website at all or had a very old website. And so we've got the format now, and we've got websites built, and we're struggling just getting the site up and really live and used with communities. And some of that has just been, I haven't had time to work with them. And others have been a little bit of pushback. We did get, a website isn't in my job description. And it's like, well, and I understand that, but communicating about your city is, so instead of just posting minutes on the bulletin board, you would now just post them on the website. But we're working kind of through that, and I think it's mostly time, having time and having someone else as a champion. And I pulled Stephanie in to kind of help me do that. And we're trying to make it easy with the web host to say you could log in with just a generic, city at the county site and get in, and it is easy to use, but there's a learning curve if you've never really used a website before. And so I think hopefully now with the COVID-19, when we finally can get back out with cities, it's going to be seen as a necessity instead of just like, oh yeah, it's nice, but I really don't want to use it, which is just weird. But I think that's, we have very small communities. 100 people. So I don't know, there's that, but then other communities are excited to, and want to do other things with it. And I do think the app-based community calendar, maybe even a newcomer group with an app, I think that combining the app and using your website as a base, and then with that Swift technology, developing an app could create lots of opportunities to do more in the future. But I think first things first, we have to get these live on the websites, or websites actually up and used.
Sure. Jen, can I ask you just a couple questions about this? So how many communities do you have in Swift County?
We have 8.
Okay. And of those 8, how many currently do not have a website? I mean, before, or didn't have one before this?
Well, 5. One, and we had 2 that have, Benson and Appleton have strong website presence. Kirkhoven had an older site. Murdoch got a site, but not didn't have a lot of functionality. And then we have DeGraff, Danvers, Clontarf, Holloway that didn't have a site. And then there was discussion of Swift County or Swift Falls, which isn't an incorporated city, but a little community, and it also has the Swift County Park right there, Swift Falls Park, about doing a community presence for their site or for their community. So basically the 2 that we showcased are KMS or Kirkhoven and Murdoch each had sites. So those were easiest to build because they already had some things they knew they wanted. Whereas now we're at the point where, okay, we need to build the sites for folks that, you know, aren't sure what they need. So we've got a template, and then it's just, you know, working with them to say, is this going to work? And part of it is it's supposed to present, you know, be functional for the city, but we also wanted it to be that profile for the community for economic development. So there's a set number of things that we want in the site, but we want, you know, if, you know, in this one, well, this just has, you know, like the Pillsbury Push, the 5K, this was from Kirkhoven. They do a Town and Country Days, and this is a way you could register for the 5K. They had some pictures of their Town and Country Days, and does it make more sense to create a page about Town and Country Days with everything right there? So it's just adapting it what makes sense. Murdoch, and I don't have that one, but Murdoch has a permit that folks can fill out online. And so do we want to have that? Maybe it's a form that just gets emailed, or do you want to do, you know, different ways to do that instead of just download print kind of thing? So it's, you know, when you know what you want, what's the best way to have that available?
So you know, I think I was wondering if maybe Bill wanted to chime in a little bit about what we've seen, you know, across our experience in all these communities, that this is the idea of like community portals and shared calendars and people collaborating online is really a heavy lift for communities. You're not alone in finding this challenging, and there's just a lot, and I don't know, Bill, maybe you could provide some context about how hard this can be to do.
Well, I think we've seen, you know, I think there's a variety of reasons why it's difficult. In some places, there's so many actors, like in Red Wing or in Grand Rapids, people are fighting to be the web, you know, the community web place, you know, whether that's a chamber, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Chamber of Commerce, City Hall, the county. And then there's other places where, you know, the lack of capacity at the city clerk level or something is just low, or their interest is low. And, you know, so they fail for a variety of reasons, whether it's competitive or lack of technical skills. The calendars seem to be the hardest because that's such a dynamic thing. You know, and I think your mobile app piece, you know, people are, so much of it comes down to the enlightened self-interest, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, so if a bar wants to, you know, say, hey, it's, you know, spaghetti night or Vikings game or beanbag, you know, championship or something, you know, that's in their interest to promote. And so finding people's interests and where it's going to really value them. And in some of these small towns, the idea, you know, chances are businesses aren't really coming there most likely, you know, I mean, if they are coming there, it's somebody who's drives by and sees an empty store as opposed to, looking for a site location person. So I think understanding that there's, people going to be interested. So, it's interesting about the county, your role, Jen. There's sometimes you say, well, should I help these people be self-sufficient or should I just do it myself? Right? And have that as a role of the RDA. Say, look, we're going to, for an hour a month, we can support somebody's website, right? And to do it yourself or, do it for them. Sometimes that's just it's certainly more effective, and it's certainly, sometimes it's easier, to try and drag them along. Although at Blandin, sometimes we say, hey, if you're not interested, forget it, right? I mean, the community has to buck up and start doing these things for themselves to a certain extent as well. And it's finding that, doing it for them for a while, maybe that leads to them wanting to do more. But, if I'm a clerk and I work 3 hours a week or 10 hours a week or something, they want to get the water bills out and every legal notice out. They don't think about the value added. I don't know. It's everyone, it's the who's home when you get there, right? I mean, and if the people who are the clerks aren't really home to do this kind of work, you can't really make them.
Right, and I think it's coming. I think capacity is a big thing. I know my capacity is limited, and this is really about communications, and the way we set it up is that, my updates for the county, if it's happening in a Kirkhoven or if it's happening in a Holloway, if I tag it that way, it's there, and now it should carry over to that community site. So it's one of those things where I'm doing anyway. So the value add is that now it's carried over to the community site. I think it's just, it's making that push to once it's live, unless we're making it more of the profile billboard type, which in some circumstances, that's the way we might have to do it for those smallest communities. But I think once it's live, we want to make sure they know how to get in there and do the things they want to do. And right now, it's just been challenging for me to take the time and kind of work with somebody, because it is also one of those things where you need some cheat sheets. If you don't use it all the time, you need to go back and look how to do it again. And then it becomes, not an easy thing, but just a nuisance. And so we're trying to do it right and work with folks. And again, Stephanie has been a big help on updating some stuff. And as you indicated, I think the self-interest, that's with the app, which everybody's got a mobile phone, and the app and being able to see it that way and the way it appears, some of the things on community sites, I think could build, it could start bringing more interest. So it's just kind of continuing to work on it. It just hasn't happened as quickly as I wanted. I think we'll get there. But I think capacity, not just at my level, at the, with even my own site, but at the cities, even getting them that training right away so they feel comfortable with it is going to make them realize, oh, I can get a lot done here pretty easily, but we just haven't done that. It's always on the list, but something is always coming up.
And just one final, I don't mean final, but one other comment I wanted to make about this whole marketing thing is that I think you really nailed it earlier, Jen, and my experience is that this question of scale is super relevant on regional marketing efforts. And so like, who is we, right? Is it the county? Is it the region? Is it the what? And they're getting that figured out takes a lot of work just for people to agree this is us. And we have seen some pretty extended, sustained efforts to do regional marketing across rural Minnesota. You've probably, sure you're aware of that among your peers, right? Live Wide Open is one of them. And
yeah, we have Get Rural.
Get Rural, right. And so there's a lot of people trying to figure this out. I'm glad you're taking the long view and hanging in there, because I think things are going to be different going forward post-COVID. And so clearly communities and cities want to have a, I mean, if you don't have a presence on the internet, it's going to be even more challenging to attract and retain people and all that. So thanks for your tenacity on this, and you're not alone in struggling a little bit. It's not an easy one.
Yeah, and then we've got, basically that was our going forward. And look, I put a little mask on our guy. That's a mask. I know it's not the greatest drawing, but can you see that? Do I need to make it bigger? Oh, maybe I can't zoom anymore. It didn't work. I zoomed the wrong thing.
I can see it.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was exciting.
Very cute. Is it a blue mask? Yes.
Oh, wait, now I went way overboard. Yeah,
There
see
it
there.
is.
There's my guy with the blue mask. I'm not great at the freehand on the ThinkPads here, so. But yeah. So I don't know if anybody had anything else, but this was pretty much our projects that we've done thus far.
So I don't think I have the most up-to-date information from you, but what the last budget sheet I have has us that you're at about $65,000 allocated. Is there a little bit more than that now? What is 75?
I think what's about, well, there's some came in a little higher, some came in a little lower. So I think that's the difference, because we're right about at that level. And I think the camp one is looking at, I think we were at about 9,000. I think the camp one was looking at about 7,000, 7,500 this time, Terri,
Okay.
or Allison.
7,500.
But I have the accounting for that. And so there's just been a little bit of ups and downs.
Of course.
Yeah.
So you're pretty close.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, your original grant agreement ended on June 30th, so we can certainly extend that, especially in the current situation. And, you know, by the end of the year would be nice, but there's no real limitation beyond, you know, our own staff wanting to help you get these done for too long.
And I think because, like, as Allison mentioned, they could do, even if they needed to do an after school, you know, program, I think, I mean, we can kind of finalize that request and get it in, and I'll send you the other one that I probably just didn't do, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think you gave us kind of a little preview, but not the final one. And it all looked good. I'm not worried about it, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think that's all on the business end we need to talk about today.
Jen, has your team been meeting as a team at all regularly? Not so much, huh?
no, we haven't met for a while. I think we came out of the end of 2019 with ideas of, you know, we're going to go with this, you know, with the things that we're doing, and then no.
Yeah.
I think I've met with, like, you know, Becca when the camping one was going on, and Stephanie, of course, with some of the other projects. And I talked with Terri and Allison about the other one, but we haven't had a group meeting.
So one of the things, you know, as we try to have these visits, trying to help teams think about what the future for their team looks like going forward. And certainly I think this COVID experience has shown the benefits to a region of having a team ready to go to accept and work with resources. We're expecting now with the CARES Act and some other, you know, some pretty big money coming down to the counties and the townships and cities on COVID response. And of course, as we know, broadband's a big piece of that. I mean, it can be as a way to deliver, to respond to COVID. So just, you know, if you're wondering what thoughts you guys had about the benefit of trying to keep your efforts going and to help your county be ready to respond, or allocate other resources that may come your way.
And I had mentioned this again earlier too with the EAA money from EDA. Is that right? I had sent out an email. I kind of spammed a bunch of people, including my board members, to try and think of ideas like how we could apply for even a minimum amount of the 100,000 to put toward either existing projects, ideas that we have that we want to augment, or kind of one-time funds. I'm, you know, basically to address COVID. I mean, I think that's the deal. We have to tie it back to addressing COVID, and I think there's lots of opportunities. I have had a couple responses so far, and my board meets tomorrow, so I'm interested to see what comes out of that. But I think, yes, you know, technology should definitely be a part of that. And I think other groups that don't have the broadband are even going farther in that. But I'd like to see it go toward programming. And I know instead of maybe revolving loan funds or something like that, because I think there are a lot of loan funds now. And it'd be fun to connect this. I think for me, I'm more interested in looking deeper at that intelligent communities framework and that application, and maybe trying to get more people that recognize with COVID, hey, this is really important. And what are we doing? And taking another look at that application and being part of that program. Because I think we're doing some great things in Swift County, but it's, you know, it's just engaging people the right way, I think.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like your county board as the board understands, is an ally in this work for you, or are you still trying to convince them a little bit? Where are they at?
I would say they're totally on board. I mean, I think that's one thing that everybody recognizes, that we really are well positioned because of decisions that the county board made to, you know, to adapt now. Mm-hmm. And, you know I would not be sitting here working from home had we not got the border to border grant done. We did not have service here. So that's a huge change. I don't know, Becca, Terri, I mean, we all would have been, you know, it's not going to work. Can't work from home.
Wow. Yeah. Well, does Bill or Mary, do you guys have any other questions or feedback for this team before we pivot a little bit and talk about some Blandin news?
You know, I think you guys have done a lot of good work in, you know, some very small communities. I think that is a heavy lift to start to change behavior and get people interested and so on. But, you know, I like the 4-H project is great. I think that's really fun to have the youth engagement, and then the STEM camp, I think is, you know, those are making big differences in your community for your youngest people in your community. And they're making, as they grow up, you know, they say, well, what's the possibility? What are the opportunities here in Swift County? And I think they're getting a taste that, hey, we can access whatever school stuff we want to do, and we can be as sophisticated in our use of technology as any other place in the state or the country. And so that, I think, I congratulate you for that. And, you know, I think the idea of looking at the intelligent community model and really using that as an economic development strategy is smart. I just think I think I have a lot of faith in that model, and I think it helps people think about the future and about the inner workings between technology and workforce and smart business. And so I think it's a great way to build your local economy, you know, from the ground up, which, you know, when you're in rural Minnesota, the idea of hoping that a bunch of people are going to move, you know, to the prairie it's just a tough thing. And so the building your economy from the bottom up with workforce and innovation and supporting new business and small business. I think you're right on the money with that analysis.
I can tell you that Bill cites Swift County's efforts a lot when we're talking to other communities. That welding project that you did, I mean, really increasing people's income like that. I mean, lifting them out of poverty and through some combined online and in-person training. And we've cited that as a innovation, and as well as your 4-H app. And like Bill said, it's really fun to see folks focusing on young, engaging youth. So I echo his congratulations.
And that goes back to the whole city clerk, you know, the small town clerk thing. If they're not the right audience to move forward with technology, then find the people who are interested in doing things. You know, Becca and Stephanie at Extension, and you know, businesses in the communities that want to survive and thrive. And take the, you know, if you say, oh, I'm going to get those city clerks to, you know, be able to go into WordPress or something, you know, that can be a lot of work for not that much benefit. But if you go with things that are moving and people who like to do things, you know, then you can really make it happen. And finally, people, the city clerks, you know, by osmosis, might start to pick this up. You know, expectations change, you know, and people say, well, look at Extension, what they're doing, and look at what other people are doing. We should, you know, try and catch up a little bit. You know, that will happen in its own time, I think.
Yeah, and I should say that many are on board. It's just been in 2 instances where it was just like, you know, I mean, if it's going to get done, it's not going to get done by, you know, this way. But you know, there's elections all the time and things change, and we know it's, you know, just, again, if anything, we've got kind of these communities now that good profiles on the site. And so, and we've got the framework to bring every community a website when they're ready.
Yeah,
so,
and I don't mean to pick on those people either, but I mean, it's just, you know, there's only so much energy, and you know, it's one of Newton's laws, you know, about, you know, things that are rolling, you know, it's a lot easier to keep them rolling. The things that are stuck in place, you know, it takes a lot of energy to get them to move. And sometimes with limited time and resources, you go with the, you know, who's interested, who's raising their hand, and charge ahead. So that's, you know, that's my advice.
Super, thanks, Bill. So news from Blandin. I think I shared with you guys, may have seen the news that we have a new president and CEO. Did you see that notice? Tulia Palmer, from originally from Cass Lake, now working in Bemidji, is going to be joining us as our new president and CEO in mid-July. And Kathy Annette is leaving us after do you remember, Mary, how many years she's been our CEO? 8 or 9 years. It's been a while. So it's a big transition for us. And we're all feeling the COVID reality. Imagine trying to onboard a new CEO, you know, in the midst of, we're dispersed here at Blandin. We're all working from home. We have been since early March. And so we're trying to figure out what that's going to look like. We did meet her on a Zoom meeting like this last Monday. There was a whole bunch of faces, and she got to meet us. So we're, anyway, really looking forward to bringing her along and helping her learn about this, in particular, Mary and Bill and I, our broadband work, familiarize herself with our efforts. And as Jen said at the top of the meeting, the COVID has really, I think, shone a light, and it's easier to see now maybe than it was earlier for the casual observer, how important connectivity and the ability to use it is for economic development and well-being. So we'll be working on getting to know Tulia and having her get to know our work. The other, Jen, you mentioned this morning that you were on the Blandin broadband leadership roundtable this morning at 9 o'clock.
yes.
And I wanted to make sure that others knew about that too, since we transitioned our a training program online and found that people just kind of were eager to visit with one another and talk. And so Bill has been hosting, this is the third or fourth week now, every Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock for an hour, a broadband leadership workshop with different topics, and invited to come on, and kind of an informal opportunity to touch base. What'd you think this morning, Jen? Was that the first one you'd attended?
I think I've attended another one, but maybe it was not hosted by Bill. I'm not sure, but I thought it was good. I think my one thing, and I guess I'm curious if other people say, I'm a little bit jealous of people that get to start with BBC today in COVID, although I know there'd be challenges to that, just because I think there would just be more like a realization of how important it was versus, even looking back at some of our goals, they seemed a little bit out there where it seems like we could have made so much more impact in a way. I think we did some really good things. I think we probably do the same things, but I wonder about that visioning. If we wouldn't have had more people show up originally that would have had ideas that we didn't know, of today. I don't know if that made sense. Blah, blah,
I'm
blah.
laughing because we are about to try a vision meeting online. Mary and Bill have been working really hard to redesign that with all kinds of, we always said to people, 60 people in the room, right? That's what we want to see. So there are opportunities and challenges, of course, to this new online world, ways we could engage more people, and then some people it's more difficult to engage. So we'll see what it's like doing a vision meeting online here.
I'm doing a rural impact county challenge through NACO right now. Utilize your breakout rooms. They really work well. If you're using Zoom, those breakout rooms are fun to get stuff going and bring it back and, present. So that's my advice. It works well for this other group I'm on.
Yeah, we're going to have the table conversations for the ICF indicators. We're going to do those in breakout rooms. So we'll see how it goes. But, the benefit we had with, when we started your committee, we had way more fun. I'm just remembering the vision meeting after party that we had. That was, I don't think we're going to get to experience anything like that with these new communities for a little while.
True.
So give and take.
And speaking of virtual transitions and accommodating COVID, our planning team has decided we're going to try an online conference this year instead of an in-person broadband conference in October. We're designing an online dispersed experience and trying to make it fun and engaging and so forth. So stay tuned for that. We've got it's going to be kind of dispersed across the month of October. We're going to do 3 days, the first week of October, and then some individual activities in between, and then come together again for 3 days at the end of October. So stay tuned. We hope to have more details of that out relatively soon. And then one other bit of news, I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up so you can keep your ears open for it. Again, because people see now how important connectivity is for people's participation in general, the governor's office really had its bell rung about the gap for students across the state that lack internet connectivity or device or to connect to the internet or skills to use it, and what a challenge that presents for distance learning. And the imperative for educators to offer equitable educational opportunities, and that has prevented some school districts from fully utilizing distance learning because not all the kids have access to distance learning. And so the governor has asked to stand up a new public-private partnership that's being led on the private side by the Minnesota Business Partnership and Best Buy, and on the public side, Blandin Foundation and some other foundations are stepping up. And the private sector partners are committed to raising up to $6 million in the next 2 to 3 weeks to then be distributed through this public-private partnership out across rural Minnesota to school districts to help fill these gaps of internet connectivity, devices, and supportive services. So we're trying to figure out now how to best do that most efficiently and in the least burdensome way. I think, Jen, as you talked about earlier, we do know there's a lot of resources coming through the CARES Act and the state, and a lot of loan and grant funds. And so we recognize, we've talked during this meeting about capacity challenges for people to absorb even resources in an efficient way. So this partnership is called Partnership for a Connected MN, and we're trying to think now as we're designing this a way to help get those resources out in a way that's helpful and not burdensome and still does some good. And we're trying to be mindful of this tension between a band-aid for immediate needs and building a bridge to the future, and finding so we don't put all of our investments in something that doesn't advance or bring value over the long term. And I'm finding at this table with my urban partners that, and maybe this won't surprise you guys, that a lot of people think the answer, what we need to do is buy a bunch of hotspots and send them out. And if we could just get hotspots in people's hands, that would solve the problem. Of course, we know better that there's a lot more involved in that. So trying to figure out ways that these resources could not just solve an immediate problem, but build for the future too. So it's it's new, it's an interesting experience for Blandin. We've been called in to lead the rural internet access work stream. So stay tuned, and if there's we'll just, if there's a way for us to be helpful to you guys in accessing that and learning more about it, let us know. I don't have many more details at this point. It's kind of still a work in progress. But I wanted you to know about the statewide effort anyway to respond. That's kind of our news. We do have a new cohort, just FYI, of Blandin Broadband Communities that we launched right pre-COVID. We did manage to get everybody together up in Grand Rapids for kind of a launch meeting where the 5 new communities came together, and we went through the ICF framework. Jen, you guys have been there. And then COVID hit. And so since then we've been scrambling to kind of adapt for an online engagement going forward. And so we're on our road to virtual vision meetings. So we'll see how that goes. That's all the news I've got. Any questions from anybody?
No, I was trying to say good luck. That's why I just wanted to let you know. I hope it works out. Thanks. I think it might be fun to see if there's, after it's all said and done, if the projects were similar or if there was something really new that came out of, oh shoot, my Roomba's going. Yeah. I'll let you guys talk.
Okay. Bill, were you going to offer some final words of instructions? Looks like you were.
No, hold on. There we go. Sorry about that. Everything disappeared from my screen there. It went off to the side. No, just I'd encourage you to keep working, and I think the Intelligent Community Framework is a great thing to use as you think about grant applications. And, I think people like to, just like I was talking about, everything in its time, I think funders love to see they're working with a group of people that are moving forward. And so I would encourage you to keep moving forward and keep working together. And, good things happen when you get out of your offices, whether it's on Zoom or for coffee. So keep working together. I think in a smaller community and across a rural county, that is so important. You just can't sit in your office with your nose to the grindstone. You have to keep on making the connections and see how you can work together across the, whether extension and the county, development agency or the bank, and so in schools, major industries, because there's no one coming to save you besides yourselves. So that's, so that I think that's really just important to, to keep in mind that you've got the talent and the resources and the people out there. You just have to work together to do your best.
Thanks for that, Bill. And Terri and Sherry and Jennifer and Allison, it was great to be with you today. Thanks for joining us. You know how to find us, so don't ever hesitate to pick up the phone and stay in touch. And we'll hope to see you at the conference this fall, if not before then. And Mary's your gal as usual for that. It sounds like you were going to think about maybe an extension, Jen, and you can just be in touch with Mary on that detail.
Okay, we'll do. I'll circle back with Terri and Allison and we'll get the final thing submitted that we hope is going to happen. And if not, I think I have a backup plan. So.
All right. Carry on, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.